Good morning, everyone. I think we're going to get started here, and I think we're going to try to kind of move through this morning agenda fairly quickly. I'm not going to certainly take away anything from our PSC Chairman Hornstrom and Kip in the back, but I might breeze through my aspect of things a little bit more quickly. I know some people look outside and want to hit the road. I know some people left yesterday, hoping to beat whatever's coming in. So for those of you who braved the weather and chose to stay, I thank you greatly. So there's nothing more dreadful than thinking about an event and not having anybody in the room. So I guess I'm going to take this opportunity too to make a little housekeeping announcement here, or an event announcement that the Infrastructure Authority is also a part of. I know School of Energy Resources, Rocky Mountain Power, but on Wednesday, May 8th in Gillette is the Wyoming Energy Summit, hosted by the entities I mentioned, but the Wyoming Business Report. Roger in the back there has been a big part of helping organize that. So any specific questions you can pester him about, but they got a pretty great lineup of folks coming in and talking about the state of affairs of energy. Some people from DC. I know one day there's the day before, I believe there's some tours. Specifically, I know that the Integrated Test Center is a part of that tour, and I'm actually going to talk about this with that right now. So for people who haven't had a chance to see it, that'd be a really great opportunity. But if you do find yourself in Gillette or looking to make a little road trip that week, that would be a great event. So thanks to Roger for bringing it to my attention, and I guess I will keep going on mine. So I wanted kind of quickly to give an update on the DDTC. The last day and a half or whatever has been talking about, why Wyoming, why are we doing this, building these building blocks, and how do we keep coal a viable part of the state's economy, while addressing some of these larger societal concerns over carbon emissions. Can we turn this liability of CO2 into an asset? And, your Senator Enzi has a great saying that says, unless you're at the table, you're on the menu. And by having Wyoming be a part of these broader discussions, I think it helps us shape, where we go. We've got some monumental challenges, but with Wyoming stepping up and focusing on these solutions, it allows us to have a seat at that table. Last May, we did dedicate the facility as major construction was over. And representatives from the X-Prize competition and the 5 countries that those teams represent. Japan was there, as well as our major benefactors from Basin Electric, National Rural Electric Cooperatives, and Tri-State. And I'm going to take this chance too. We've got Dan from NRECA here, who's been a long-time supporter. I see Morgan out there, she's from Tri-State. So these have been some great partnerships, and we appreciate not only their support of the ITC, but also WA activities. So there's 2 sort of sections of the facility. You got the large test bay areas and the larger test bay areas. And kind of a misconception is that, they're thinking university, laboratory, sort of when we say small test bays. We don't want to replicate what is available elsewhere. This idea is to be a scale-up facility. So a small test bay to us is actually an outdoor, facility to host these projects, and even a small project is going to be something, a shipping container size, and so what these small test bays are will allow a project of about that size to come in, and you can see on the picture on the left, that's what one of the hookups for one of those small test bays look like. So you have an 8-inch duct that provides flue gas straight from the power plant. You have a meter pedestal to tie into the electrical system. You have an 8-gallon per minute of water available there. So it's a very oversimplification, but think of it almost like an RV park for tests. We have the hookups. They will build them off-site. They will bring them in. They will hook them up. And when they're finished, they unhook, they take it away, and hopefully the next one can come in. So our relationship with Carbon Tech Labs yesterday. You know, it's developing that pipeline of technology, so when one is done, the next can come in and sort of rotate them through. So that's what the small test bays look like. The large test bay is bigger and a little different animal. You know, the small bays could host a project that's about 0.4 megawatt equivalent. And so when you look at the Dry Fork Power Station, that's 400 megawatts. So 0.4, you're 1/1000th the size of the power plant. Here, this has the ability to host a project up to a 20 megawatt equivalent. So you're at roughly 5% of the power plant capacity. And that 20 megawatt, 10 to 20 megawatt size is crucial because that is the size that a lot of utilities are saying they need to see some productive results to feel confident of building, a couple hundred megawatt size. So the large test bay really is that opportunity to sort of bridge that valley of death of technologies. And so, whereas the small test bays had an 8-inch duct, this has a 4-foot by 4-foot duct. So much larger. It's a much larger physical space too. It's like 363 by 360 feet. We did build some capabilities in there to split that into two, so we could host approximately 2 different projects at one time. And so, all told, between the small bays, the large bays, we could theoretically host 8 projects at once. I don't think we would want to for a lot of reasons, but we could do that. So, right now, as I mentioned, major construction is over. There will always be a little bit of, building infrastructure to meet the needs of the individual project. But we have moved beyond that construction and planning, and now we're into more of a tenant support and operations phase. So we have a contract firm called EFA. It's Efficient Fuel Additives. That is, they're the contract operator for the facility. I am great at public affairs and government affairs. I am a very poor engineer, so we brought on Will and his folks to help sort of operate that, provide that tenant support, help teams navigate the permitting process through DEQ, be that liaison between the plant and the teams, help them develop safety programs. Just anything, those little things that teams may need to pull off a successful team. We're using some local service contractors as well. Ladkey Construction is a well-known firm in the Gillette area, but they have on-site cranes and equipment that can help teams unload things, set things up, snow removal, stuff like that. We're working with EPA and our Department of Environmental Quality to get some assurances. It's more for the power plant itself, because if for example, if that large test bay is running, we got 5% of the flue gas that's being diverted and used and is permitted somewhere else. They shut that off, and all of a sudden the power plant's emissions spike by 5%. Basic Electric doesn't want to get dinged for that, and then letting EPA, or making sure the EPA is very well aware of what's going on. So that's been something that we've been working on as well. Negotiating all the various lease contracts. Different teams have different needs, so making sure that everybody's on the same page and who's providing what. We have an electrical service agreement with the Rural Electric Cooperative. Even though we are right next to the power plant, the electricity actually goes out onto the grid to the Rural Electric Co-op and then comes back in. And that's just the way it's set up out there, and actually it works really great. And then we've been doing a lot of tours. We want to showcase the facility, both potential tenants, but also other leaders and I guess public folks. So really want to show what we're doing. Here are the 5 teams that are involved in the X Prize competition. There has been a little bit of movement. A year ago, when we did the announcement, I guess, with X Prize, there was one team called Carbon here that was from Canada. They have since moved up to the Canadian facility, and so it was backfilled by Dimensional Energy out of out of New York. So we have 2 American teams, a Chinese team, a team from India, and a team from UCLA. So it has been challenging working, internationally, just sort of, Chinese engineering standards are a little different than U.S., working with them to secure visas. So like the University of Wyoming has been helping us, and I think we're going to sort of piggyback on their like visiting scholar program that they have. And so we've had to get really creative with how we're able to, make this work. But the great thing is everybody's coming together, and I guess we're making it happen. But this hasn't been without hiccups. We're admittedly behind schedule of where we would like to be, but that's the nature of these types of things, and we're trying to work through it. A lot of these teams specifically, actually pretty much all of them, they come from more of an academic background, and so scaling up and carrying out a project on an industrial scale is something that they're just not familiar with. The fact that having to register with the Secretary of State to be able then to apply to DEQ to get an air permit, and then getting a safety program in place, and understanding spill management on a site, and electrical codes and standards, and just a lot of things that are new to them. But the fact of the matter is, we will not let a project operate on site unless it is absolutely safe to code, and there are no environmental or personal health and safety risks. So that the safety is always paramount, and it might cause some delays and it might increase some costs, but that is something that we're not going to compromise or take a step back from. So some of the bigger projects that we've been working on and are trying to get up to the facility are, one is MTR, and they have a membrane technology. So think about a filter for CO2. And it's a semi-permeable, you run that flue gas through that filter, those filter packs. It's not like one filter, it's many, many, many filters, but it separates the CO2 out that way. And one of the things that's really unique about that technology and really promising is, unlike an amine-based technology with Petronova, Mountain Dam, something like that, where you have to really build a chemical plant on site to separate that and do the temperature swings with the amine solution to release the CO2. It's much less capital intensive. It's more modular. Some of the schematics that they have shown for a commercial scale is, if you need a builder or bigger, you just put on another modular unit and sort of stack and add on. So they've had some great successes at the National Carbon Capture Center, and I should add that the ITC is a member of the National Carbon Capture Center, and the benefit for us joining that is access to these teams that have done some great small level work and are ready to scale up. So as you can see, I guess one of their mod units is right in front there, and it's shorter, smaller than the big, tall, amine system. So it's pretty interesting. But they are and them and University of Kentucky, they do have a little bit more of a traditional solution-based system that they want to test. But University of Kentucky and MTR are 2 of 9 projects that advance from phase 1 to phase 2 for large project funding from DOE. So probably 18 months from now, DOE will award 2 project grants of up to $40 million each, but that would require at least a $10 million non-federal, or 20% non-federal cost share. So it could be total project costs of $50 million. And phase 2 applications were actually due 2 days ago, on the 27th. So what we did with both teams, they have a lease signed with the ITC that states that this is their preferred host site. We're working through them. We were working with them very heavily on their phase 2 applications to DOE. So now they will consider that, and yeah, I guess it'll be a little while now until they decide who those phase 2 award winners are, but pretty excited because those could be 2 very large projects. TDA Research is a company out of the Denver area. They've got a hybrid system that is solid sorbent as well as a membrane. And interestingly enough, the membrane that they use has ties to MTR. But they will actually arrive on site in probably late May, early June of this year. So they will be the first teams on site. And it'll be a smaller scale sort of a project, but they're also a company that's done some work at the National Carbon Capture Center, the Mondstadt facility in Norway. And so, you know, for them to have a facility just up the road in Wyoming, they're pretty thrilled about that. And a couple of weeks ago, they received, I think it was a $3.9 million award from the Department of Energy to do another round of testing. So they'll do this first one this spring, and then at some point within the next 12 months, they'll probably have another one on site. So things are starting to happen and move, and you know, hopefully success just sort of continues to build. And then the other one that we've been working on for a long time, and I think most people know fairly well, is the relationship with Wyoming and J. Cole, and specifically Kawasaki Heavy Industries. So J. Cole is, I guess the easiest way to sort of describe them is the sort of the coal association for the, you know, the utilities, the importers, the coal, you know, the Japanese utility system is a little more vertically integrated than the U.S. system, but they receive most of their funding from the it's METI, it's the Ministry of Economy, Technology, and Industry. But you know, they are sort of tasked with trying to develop projects, develop relationships, and so excuse me, about 3 years ago, they signed. J. Cole signed an MOU with Governor Meade to basically, you know, cooperate together on technology development, coal exports, trade, those sort of things. You know, University of Wyoming, SER was part of that. Business Council, Infrastructure Authority were the 3 principals in that MOU. And there's been a lot of trips back and forth. Wyoming folks have gone to Japan a number of times. The J. Cole folks have come to Wyoming a number of times. And it sort of culminated about a year ago when Kawasaki announced that they were, in conjunction with J. Cole and the Ministry of Environment, do a solid sorbent test on at the ITC. So over this past year, they've been doing a lot of feasibility work, understanding you know, U.S. regulations and codes and standards, the cost of things, potential you know EPC firms that could you know be a part of this. So the Japanese have a very methodical approach to how they carry out these projects, but I think they are on schedule. They should receive the next round of funding next week because their fiscal year starts April 1st, and at that point they will begin the design and construction of their unit, and hopefully next summer, so summer of 2020, they will be on site. So some really great things coming. You know, the business development aspect of this is huge. I mentioned our relationship with the National Carbon Capture Center, you know, our Carbon Tech Labs agreement, you know, a lot of engagement with potential researchers, and that means getting out on the road and going to where these folks are, you know, whether it's the, you know, EIA has a big coal conference in Houston in June, so we'll be a part of that. I know Kip in the back is part of that. Don Collins from WRI, I believe, has got a presentation, so we'll be a pretty good Wyoming presence there. You know, Pittsburgh Coal Conference, GHGT conferences, NETL conferences, you know, really getting out there on the ground. And I think there are a lot of people who don't want to be the first one. They kind of want to see how others, you know, use the facility and make sure everything's sort of operating seamlessly, but we feel like we're making some really good progress. Looking down the road, we're exploring additional infrastructure and amenities that, you know, sort of build out the facility to make it more attractive to more teams and tenants. You know, for example, to do some more solution-based testing. Realistically, we would need a natural gas boiler on site, you know, because they need steam. And so we've been working with Black Hills that's looking at doing some infrastructure improvements kind of on the north side of Gillette anyway. And so can we sort of piggyback on what they're doing to bring that gas line out a little bit closer? You know, emissions controls, monitoring equipment, that sort of common use equipment that would be use or valuable to many other teams really looking at that as well. So excited to, you know, kind of see what some of those opportunities are, and you know, would love to kind of build that thing out, but we'll take it one bite at a time. You know, continuing to message this thing. I think one of the great successes that we've had about framing Wyoming as the perfect place to do a lot of these technologies and testing is when we talk about how Wyoming has all these pieces. And so when you look at that dry fork station where that's at, within, you know, a 50-mile radius, you have EOR opportunities, you have an existing CO2 pipeline, you have the carbon safe geologic storage site that's like a half a mile south of the ITC, you have the test center, you know, you have the resources that you dug, and when you look at the thing from like a 30,000-foot perspective, we have all the bits and pieces that I don't think you can find anywhere else in the country or in the world right there. So once we started sort of framing things that way, we did get a lot of attention from people. So we're continuing to work together as individual entities to, you know, develop some common messaging, some common marketing materials, and you know, just an ongoing process. But you know, the state has a really good story to tell. We spent a lot of time on this, but you know, we are being recognized for the work that we're doing. You know, I've had the opportunity to testify before both House and Senate committees on these things. You know, like I said, engaging with these researchers. You know, the governor spoke about it yesterday, being a little bit creative with, you know, financing projects and how we do this. Actually, this morning I had another conversation about that. You know, how do we use the state's resources to help actually make these things a reality? We've got some international recognition. PowerGen this year, the ITC was recognized alongside a project from India and a project from China. So exciting to be recognized at that level. You know, our next steps, you know, continuing to reach out to additional tenants, these partnerships, you know, continuing to work on the actual business plan and operational plan. We're kind of starting from scratch in a lot of ways, and there was not a roadmap that was given to us, so we were trying to figure out how to make this happen. You know, technical assistance, the financing, as I mentioned, you know, one of the things that we've done that didn't cost us anything, but like I mentioned, a lot of the Department of Energy projects require a non-federal cost share. And well, the $15 million that the state of Wyoming put forward, plus the $5 million from Tri-State, the $1 million from NRECA, the millions, about $6 million, Basin Electric has figured in just in-kind contributions, that can all be leveraged as non-federal cost share. We just had to set up our accounting a little bit different. So once we understood that and we were able to tweak how we did our accounting, all of a sudden we found another, $24 million of Wyoming resources to leverage against federal dollars. So it didn't cost us anything. It was just a new way of looking at it. So we're continuing to look at those types of things. And you know, investment products, we talked to, you know, the governor when he was treasurer, and we hope to continue some of those ideas moving forward. The other thing I wanted to touch upon a little bit is the Wyoming Energy Authority. For folks who are not from Wyoming, haven't really been paying attention to this, I don't know why you would be, but over the last few years, there's been some discussion in regards to how can Wyoming better leverage the resources that it is putting forth in these various spaces. And one of the ways that they've decided they want to move forward was the creation of the Wyoming Energy Authority. So the legislature passed a bill this year. It was signed by the governor on February 26th. And what it will do is by on July 1st of 2020, it'll emerge the Wyoming Infrastructure Infrastructure Authority, the Wyoming Pipeline Authority, and the Wyoming State Energy Office into the Wyoming Energy Authority. So I've been working with our legislators and the governor's office to sort of paint that broader picture. Been certainly talking with Pipeline Authority. I see Carla's here. Thanks, Carla. And you know, we sort of had that deep breath after the session, dealing with this conference. But by May 15th, you know, 6 short weeks away, we have to have an implementation plan delivered to the Minerals Committee to kind of think through this thing over the next year and a half. I'll put this stuff together. By summertime, we will have to get that a little bit. By summertime, we will have to put together a budget that will be delivered before JDC to finance or how we'll fund this thing. I'm not going to read all this here, but really the goal is to capture the existing functions of the entities, but plus expand them a little bit. You know, when you know, the various authorities and entities were created, the times were different, the needs were different. I think there was a thought that, you know, we were going to build a lot of you know, pipelines and transmission lines, and Wyoming was going to move its natural resources via those sort of transportation corridors to new markets. And what has happened is the industry has evolved and has changed. And so, you know, while certainly we're building, you know, gas lines and oil lines and things like that, we're now also building CO2 lines, or looking at building CO2 lines. You know, instead of this sort of decentralized or the centralized power system that we have, you know, big power plants and electricity flowing out, we're seeing more decentralized sort of systems where you've got, you know, local solar in places. And so as the energy industry has evolved, I think they discovered there's the need for these authorities to evolve as well to meet the needs of time. So, you know, looking at you know, education of, you know, not just school kids' education, but, you know, this larger messaging to different legislators. You know, for the past few years, the Infrastructure Authority has brought out legislators from all over the country. You know, Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, Nebraska. You know, to come up to the PRB, do tours, and so there's value in that, and that should be a part of the mission. You know, the state energy program manages energy efficiency grants from the Department of Energy. Well, you know, can we leverage those grants in new and unique ways? So it's going to be, you know, going to still be doing the same things, but really looking for those opportunities to sort of expand and meet the needs that exist today. So, you know, at the end of the day, you know, what this thing will look like, it'll be following the mission that the legislature and the governor has set, but also that new board. So come next year, the governor will nominate 7 people to serve on that board. The new structure has ex officio members from the School of Energy Resources, the Enhanced Oil Recovery Institute, the Wyoming Business Council, the Governor's Office, and the Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. And so there's an encouragement that everybody will be communicating, you know, much better. I think we do a good job, but there's always ways to improve. So by hopefully having those entities represented on the board, there'll be a better job of communication there. But at the end of the day, you know, that new board and that new executive director, whoever they choose to hire, will they'll set the mission, you know, and that continued consultation with, you know, the elected leadership. But, you know, our goal right now, I guess as I see it, is to sort of package those key functions in a way to make sure that they live beyond the existing authorities. So, you know, we can think lofty and we can think big, but I was told by Representative Schwartz, who was here yesterday and was on JAC, he goes, I don't think you're getting any more money out of us. Actually, we might ask you to take a little bit of a haircut. So, you know, so understanding those parameters is how we're going to move forward on some things. So it is pretty exciting, but it's a compressed time frame as well. So one of the things that we have been doing right now has been reaching out to some various stakeholders and just getting a sense of, you know, what like to see, and you know, it's just sort of that information gathering, because really at the end of the day, what we are a service to the state and our stakeholders, and we want to be able to serve the needs of that. So for those who we haven't had a chance to visit with yet, please feel free to ping me or Sarah. I'd love to have the conversation. So my contact information is there, and I think most people know how to get a hold of me. For folks who are social media inclined, we do have a website and Twitter and Facebook feeds for, you know, the ITC. I don't have the WIA stuff up there, but that's a pretty good way to keep up to date on what's going on. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us this week. And I guess I will see where we're at. Time should be pretty good. I'd gladly answer any questions. All right. Fair enough.